48 Laws of Power, Chapter 28. Enter actions with boldness. If you are unsure of a course action, do not attempt it. Your doubts and hesitation will infect your execution. Timidity is dangerous. Better to enter with boldness. Any mistakes you commit through audacity are easily corrected with more audacity. Everyone admires the bold. No one honors the timid. Boldness and hesitation elicit very different psychological responses in their target. Hesitation puts obstacles in your path. Boldness eliminates them. Once you understand this, you will find it essential to overcome your natural timidity and practice the art of audacity. The following are among the most pronounced physiological effects of boldness and timidity. The bolder the lie, the better. We all have weaknesses, and our efforts are never perfect. But entering action with boldness has a magical effect of hiding our deficiencies. Con artists know that the bolder the lie, the more convincing it becomes. The sheer audacity of the story makes it more credible, distracting attention from its inconsistencies. When putting together a con or entering any kind of negotiation, go further than you planned. Ask for the moon and you will be surprised how often you get it. Lions circle the hesitant prey. People have a sixth sense for the weaknesses of others. If in first encounter you demonstrate your willingness to compromise, back down, and retreat, you bring out the lion even in people who are not necessarily bloodthirsty. Everything depends on perception, and once you are seen as the kind of person who quickly goes on the defensive, who is willing to negotiate and to be amicable, you will be pushed around without mercy. This is true. Boldness strikes fear. Fear creates authority. The bold moves you make, you seem The bold moves makes you seem larger and more powerful than you are. If it comes suddenly with the stealth and swiftness of a snake, it inspires that much more fear. By intimidating with a bold move, you establish a precedent in every subsequent encounter. People will be on the defensive in terror of your next strike. Going halfway with half a heart digs a deeper grave. If you enter an action with less than total confidence, you set up obstacles in your own path. When a problem arises, you will grow confused, seeing options where there are none, and inadvertently creating more problems still. Retreating from the hunter, the timid hare scurries more easily into his snares. Hesitation creates gaps. Boldness liberates them. When you take time to think, to hem and haw, you create a gap that allows others time to think as well. Your timidity infects people with awkward energy, eliminates embarrassment. Doubt springs up on all sides. Boldness destroys such gaps. The swiftness or the more of the move and the energy of the action leave others no space to doubt and worry. In seduction, hesitation is fatal. It makes your victim conscious of your intentions. The bold moves crown seduction with triumph. It leaves no time for reflection. Audacity separates you from the herd. Boldness gives you presence and makes you seem larger than life. The timid fade into the wallpaper. The bold draw attention, and what draws attention draws power. We cannot keep your eyes off the audacious. We cannot wait to see their next bold move. In May of 1925, 5 of the most successful dealers in French scrap metal business found themselves invited to an official but highly confidential meeting with the Deputy Director General of the Ministry of Post. and telegraphs at the Hotel Crillon, then the most luxurious hotel in Paris. When the businessman arrived, it was Director General himself, a Monsieur Lustig, who met them in a swank suit on the top floor. The businessmen had no idea why they had been summoned to this meeting, and they were bursting with curiosity. After drinks, the director explained, "Gentlemen," he said, "this is an urgent matter that requires complete scarcity. The government is going to have to tear down the Eiffel Tower." The dealers listened in stunned silence as the director explained that the tower, as recently reported in the news, desperately needed repairs. It had originally been meant as a temporary structure for the exposition of 1889. Its maintenance costs had soared over the years, and now, in a time of physical crisis, the government would have to spend millions to fix it. Many Parisians considered the Eiffel Tower an eyesore and would be delighted to see it go. Over time, even the tourists would forget about it. It would live on the paragraph and postcards. "Gentlemen," Lustig said, "you are all invited to make the government an offer of the Eiffel Tower." He gave the businessmen sheets of government stationery filled with figures, such as tonnage of the tower's metal. Tonnage of the tower's metal. The eyes popped as they calculated how much they could make from the scrap. When Lustig led them to a waiting limo, which brought them to the Eiffel Tower, flashing an official badge, he guided them through the area, spicing up his tour with amusing anecdotes. At the end of the visit, he thanked them and asked them to have their offers delivered to his suite within 4 days. Several days after the offers were submitted, one of the five, a Monsieur P, received notice that his bid was the winner, and that to secure the sale, he should come to the suite at the hotel within 2 days, bearing a certified check for more than 250,000 francs, the equivalent today about 1 million, a quarter of the total price. On delivery of the check, he would receive the documents confirming his ownership of the Eiffel Tower. Monsieur P was excited. He would go down in history as a man who had bought and torn down the infamous landmark. But by the time he arrived at the suite, check in hand, he was beginning to have doubts about the whole affair. Why meet in a hotel instead of a government building? Why hadn't he heard from the other officials? Was this a hoax, a scam? As he listened to Lustig discuss the arrangements for the scraping of the tower, he hesitated and contemplated backing out. Suddenly, however, he realized that the director had changed his tone. Instead of talking about the tower, he was complaining about his low salary, about his wife's desires for a fur coat, about how galling it was to work hard and be unappreciated. It dawned on Monsieur P that this high government official was asking for a bribe. The effect on him, though, was not outrage but relief. Now he was sure that Lustig was for real, since all of his previous encounters with French bureaucrats, they had inevitably asked for a little greasing of the palm. His confidence restored. Monsieur P slipped the director several thousand francs in bills, then handed him the certified check. In return, he received the document, including an impressive-looking bill of sale. He left the hotel dreaming of the profits and fame to come. Over the next few days, however, as Monsieur P waited for correspondence from the government, he began to realize that something was amiss. A few telephone calls made it clear that there was no Deputy Director General Lustig, and there was no plan to destroy the Eiffel Tower. He had been built for over 250,000 francs. Monsieur P never went to the police. He knew what kind of reputation he would get if word got out that he had fallen for one of the most absurdly audacious cons in history. Besides, the public humiliation would have been business suicide. Had Count Victor Lustig, con artist extraordinaire, tried to sell the de Triomphe, a bridge over Seine, and a statue of Balzac, no one would have believed him. But the Eiffel Tower was just too large, too improbable to be part of a con job. In fact, it was improbable that Lustig was able to return to Paris 6 months later and resell the Eiffel Tower to a different scrap iron dealer and for a higher price, a sum in francs, equivalent today to over 1.5 million. Largeness of scale deceives the human eye. It distracts and awes us, and is so self-evident that we cannot imagine there is an illusion or a deception afoot. Arm yourself with a bigness and boldness. Stretch your deception as far as they will go, and then go further. If you sense that the sucker has suspicious, do as the intrepid Lustig did. Instead of backing down or lowering your price, he simply raised his price higher by asking for and getting a bribe. Asking for more puts the other person on the defensive, cuts out the nibbling effect of compromise and doubt, and overwhelms it with boldness. On his deathbed in 1533, Vasily III, the Grand Duke of Moscow and ruler of semi-united Russia, proclaimed his 3-year-old son, Ivan IV, as his successor. He announced his young wife, Helena, as regent until Ivan reaches his majority and could rule on his own. The aristocracy, the boyars, secretly rejoiced. For years, the Duke of Moscow had been trying to extend their authority over the boyars' turf. With Vasily dead, his heir, a mere 3 years old, a young woman in charge of the dukedom, the boyars would be able to roll back the duke's gains and wrest control of the state and humiliate the royal family. Awareness of these dangers, young Helena turned to her trusted friend, Prince Ivan Obolensky, to help her rule. But after 5 years as regent, she suddenly died, poisoned by a member of the Sushitsky family, the most fearsome boyar clan. The Sushitsky princes seized control of the government and threw Obolensky in prison, where he starved to death at the age of 8. Ivan was now a deprived orphan, and any boyar or family member who took an interest in him was immediately banished and killed. So Ivan roamed the palace hungry, ill-clothed, and often hidden from the Shuskis, who treated him roughly when they saw him. Some days they would search him out, clothe him in royal robes, hand him a scepter, and set him on a throne, a kind of mock ritual in which they lampooned his royal pretensions. Then they would shoo him away. One evening, several of them chased the Metropolitan, the head of Russia's church, through the palace, and he sought refuge in Ivan's room. The boy watched in horror as Shushki entered, hurled insults, and beat the Metropolitan mercifully. Ivan had one friend in the palace, a boyar named Vorontsov, who consoled and advised him. One day, however, as Vorontsov, and the newest Metropolitan conferred in the palace refectory, several S's burst in, but up V, and insulted the Metropolitan by tearing and treading on his robes. Then they banished V from Moscow. Throughout all, the Ivan maintained a strict silence. To the boyars, It seemed that their plan had worked. The young man had turned into a terrified and obedient idiot. They could ignore him now, even leave him alone. But on the evening of December 29th, 1543, Ivan, now 13, asked Prince Andrei Shusky to come to his room. When the prince arrived, the room was filled with palace guards. Young Ivan then pointed his finger at his body and to the bloodhounds and to the royal kennel. Over the next few days, Ivan had all of Andrea's close associates arrested and banished. Caught off guard by his sudden boldness, the boyars now stood in mortal terror of this youth. The future Ivan the Terrible, who had planned and waited for 5 years to execute this one swift bold act that would secure his power for decades to come. The world is full of boyars, men who despise you, fear your ambition, and jealousy guard their shrinking realm of power. You need to establish yourself, your authority, and gain respect. By the moment the boyars sense your growing boldness, they will act toward you. This is how Ivan met such a situation. He lay low, showing neither ambition or discontent. He waited, and when the time came, he brought the palace guards over to his side. The guards had come to hate the cruel Shusky's. Once they agreed to Ivan's plan, he struck with the swiftness of a snake, pointing his finger at Shusky's and giving him no time to react. Negotiate with a boyar and you create opportunities for him. A small compromise becomes a toehold. He needs to tear you apart. The sudden bold move without discussion, or warning obliterates these toeholds and builds your authority. You terrify doubters and despisers and gain the confidence of many who admire and glorify those who act boldly. In 1514, the 22-year-old Pietro Artino was working as a lowly assistant scullion to a wealthy Roman family. He had ambition of greatness as a writer to inflame the world with his name, but how could a mere lackey hope to realize such dreams? That year, Pope Louis X received from the King of Portugal an embassy that included many gifts. Most prominent among them a great elephant, the first in Rome since imperial times. The pontiff adored this elephant and showered it with attention and gifts. But despite his love and care, the elephant, which was called Hanno, became deathly ill. The Pope summoned the doctors, who administered a 500-pound purgative to the elephant, but all to no avail. The animal died, and the Pope went into mourning. To console himself, he summoned the great painter Raphael and ordered him to create a life-size painting of Hanno above the animal's tomb, bearing the inscription, "What nature took away, Raphael has with his art restored." Over the next few days, a pamphlet circulated through Rome that caused great merriment and laughter, entitled "The Last Will and Testament of the Elephant Hanno." It read, in part, "To my heir, the Cardinal Santa Croce, I give my knees, so that he can imitate my genuflections. To my heir, Cardinal Santa Quattro, I give my jaws, so they can more readily devour all of Christ's revenues. To my heir, Cardinal Medici, I give my ears, so they can hear everyone's doings. To Cardinals Grassi, who had a reputation for lechery, the elephant bequeathed the appropriate oversized part of his own anatomy. On and on the the anonymous pamphlet went, sparing none of the great in Rome, not even the Pope. With each one, it took aim at the best known weakness. The pamphlet ended with verse: "See to it that Artino is your friend, for he is a bad enemy to have. His words alone could ruin the high pope. So God guard everyone from his tongue." With one short pamphlet, Artino, son of the poor shoemaker and a servant himself, hurtled himself to fame. Everyone in Rome rushed to find out who this daring young man was. Even the Pope, amused by his audacity, sought him out and ended up giving him a job in the papal service. Over the years, he came to be known as Scrooge of Prince, and his biting tongue earned him the respect and fear of the great, from the King of France to Habsburg Emperor. The Artino strategy is simple. When you are small and obscure, as David was, you must find a Goliath to attack. The larger the target, the more attention you gain. The bolder the attack, the more you stand out from the crowd, and the more admiration you earn. Society is full of those who think daring thoughts but lack the guts and to print and publicize them. Voice what the public feels. The expression of shared feelings is always powerful. Search out the most prominent target possible and sling your boldest shot. The world will enjoy the spectacle and will honor the underdog, you, that is, with glory and power. Most of us are timid. We want to avoid tension and conflict, and we want to be liked by all. We may contemplate a bold action, but we rarely bring it to life. We are terrified of the consequences of what others might think of us, of the hostility we stir up if we dare to go beyond our usual place. Although we may disguise our timidness as a concern for others, a desire not to hurt or offend them, in fact, it is the opposite. We are really absorbed, worried about ourselves and how others perceive us. Boldness, on the other hand, is outer directed and often makes people feel more at ease, since it is less self-conscious and less repressed. This can be seen most clearly in seduction. All great seducers succeed through effrontery. Casanova's boldness was not revealed in a daring approach to women he desired or in intrepid words to flatter her. It consisted of his ability to surrender himself to her completely and to make her believe he would do anything for her, even risk his life, which in fact he sometimes did. The woman on whom he lavished his attention understood that he held nothing back from her. This was infinitely more flattering than compliments. At no point during the seduction would he show hesitation or doubt, simply because he never felt it. Part of the charm of being seduced is that it makes us feel engulfed temporarily outside of ourselves and the usual doubts that permeate our lives. The moment of seducers hesitates, the charm is broken because the moment the seducers hesitates, the charm is broken because we become aware of the process of their deliberate effort to seduce us, of their self-consciousness. Boldness directs attention outward and keeps the illusion alive. It never induces awkwardness or embarrassment. And so we admire the bold and prefer to be around them because their self-confidence infects us and draws us in our realm of inwardness and reflection. Few are born bold. Even Napoleon had to cultivate the habit on the battlefield, where he knew it was a matter of life and death. In social settings, he was awkward and timid. But he overcame this and practiced boldness in every part of his life because he saw it tremendous power, how it could literally enlarge a man. Even one who, like Napoleon, was in fact conspicuously small. We also see this change in Ivan the Terrible. A harmless boy suddenly transformed himself into a powerful man who commands authority simply by pointing a finger and taking a bold action. You must practice and develop your boldness. You will often find uses for it. The best place to begin is the best place to begin is often the deliberate word of negotiation. Particularly those discussions in which you are asked to set your own price. How often we put ourselves down by asking for too little. When Christopher Columbus promised the Spanish court finance his voyage to the Americas, he also made the insanely bold demand that he be called Grand Admiral of the Ocean. The court agreed. The price he set was the price he received. He demanded to be treated with respect, and so he was. King Kissinger, too, knew that in a negotiation, bold demands work better than starting off with piecemeal concession and trying to meet the other person halfway. Set your value high, and then, as Count Lustig did, set it higher. Understand if boldness is not natural, neither is timidness. It is an acquired habit. Pick up out of desire to avoid conflict. If timid has taken hold of you, then root it out. Your fears of the consequences of a bold action are way out proportion to reality. And in fact, the consequences of timid are worse. Your value is lowered and you create a self-fulfilling cycle of doubt and disaster. Remember, the problems created by audacious move can be disguised, even remedied by more great audacity. The lion in the hair. The lion creates no gaps in his way. His movements are too swift, his jaws too quick and powerful. The timid heir will do anything to escape danger, but in its haste to retreat and flee, it backs into traps. Hop smacks into the enemy's jaw. I certainly think that it's better to be impetuous than cautious. For fortune is a woman who is necessary. If you wish to master her, to conquer her by force, it can be seen that she lets herself be overcome by the bold rather than by those who proceed coldly. And therefore, like a woman, she is always a friend to the young because they are less cautious, fiercer, and master her with great audacity. Boldness should never be the strategy behind all of your actions. It is tactical. It is a tactical instrument to be used at the right moment. Plan and think and make the final element the bold move that will bring you success. In other words, since boldness is a learned response, it is also one that you learn to control and utilize at will. To go through life armed only with audacity would be tiring and also fatal. You would offend too many people, as if proven by those who cannot control their boldness. One such person was Lola Montez. Her audacity brought her triumphs and led her to seduction of the king of Bavaria. But since she could never reign in her boldness, it also led to her downfall in Bavaria and England. Wherever she turned, it crossed the border between boldness and appearance of cruelty, even insanity. Ivan the Terrible suffered the same fate. When the power of boldness brought him success, he stuck to it to the point where it became a lifelong pattern of violence and Satanism. He lost the ability to tell when boldness was inappropriate and when it was not. Timid has no place in the realm of power. You will often benefit, however, by being able to feign it. At that point, Of course, it is no longer timid, but an offensive weapon. You are luring people in with your show of shyness, all the better to pronounce them boldly later.